Good evening. My name is Jumoke Lafenwa, and I'm your favorite coach when it comes to PMP. Today is very simple. I'll be attending to some of your questions on PMP. My goal for the first half of 2026 is to help as many that want to write their PMP to write and pass their PMP, as well as debunking some of the myth that people have about PMP changing and what we have now. Okay, so I will start with what is PMI, or as PMI stands today. PMP, as you know, is not testing how much you know or how much you memorize. It's testing how well you can apply judgment in real project situations. The questions you'll be answering are simulated questions. They are simulated questions. They are painting scenarios uh, that you would normally encounter when you are writing exam. So your ability to be able to make correct judgments in the exam gives PMI the impression that you would be able to make good decision when you are managing projects. So, and the decision you are making affects people, process, and business environment, because you are managing people, you are leading people. Sorry, you lead people, you manage process, and you have business acumen, which is the business environment. Now, the PMP exam, as it stands now, and as it would stand from 9th July 2026. Now we have three domains, and 42% of your exam is based on people. 50% of your exam is based on process. What it means is you'll be writing 180 questions. 42% of the 180 questions you will write is based on people, leadership, servant leadership, conflict resolution, leading, mentoring, coaching, and then process has to do with how you are going to approach the project. Is it going to be predictive, adaptive, hybrid, systems thinking, and all that? And then business environment has got to do with strategy, strategic decision, alignment, value delivery. And 88% of your exam will be based on the business environment. From July 9th, because the first exam, the new one, will start on 9th July, you know, so you can see the changes. Instead of the 42% that we have now, it will move to 33%. So people would reduce, and then process will also reduce to 41% from 50%, and business environment would increase from 8% to 26%. If you are following PMI keenly, you realize that PMI has redefined what value means, what project success actually means. It's more than you meeting, delivering within budget, within timeline, within and delivering on scope. It has included outcome, and it has also included stakeholders' perception. Okay, Abba, sorry about that. And then the focus of the exam now, it is more on output and deliverables. Oh, I have delivered what the project said I should deliver. This is my scope, and that's it. And then, but from July, yeah, disturbing. From July 9th, 2026, it's shifting more into outcomes and value. Like what I said earlier, how PMI is defining project success. It's moved from, oh, this project I have delivered on time, and even though I was able to save on money, what stakeholders want to hear, or business owners, how does this value, what you have delivered, how does it impact our stakeholders? How does it make us competitive? So the perception is very important. So now, if you have, I'm sure if you're a member of PMI, then you have heard of MORE. It's a free course for PMI members. Go and do it. And it emphasizes on getting to understand the value your stakeholders are expecting from the project, their perception. So you need to engage them to know it. So from July 9th, the questions will focus on outcomes and value. You factoring in the perception of your stakeholders plus AI, sustainability, and stakeholder engagement. Previously, stakeholder engagement was a standalone, and then after some review, it was taken off. Now it's coming back. So AI will be added, sustainability will be added, and stakeholder engagement will be added back. Approach remains predictive, agile, and hybrid. And so that's where we are. So I have some tips for you before we go into our 22 questions. Now, how do I choose the best answer? Because I hear this often. Jimmy, the questions, the options, there are more than one answer. I don't know what to choose. Okay, so how do I choose the best answer? My response is when two or more options look correct, don't ask what is right. You have two options. So how do you now say, and the two options to you, they both seem to be right for the question. Ask which one aligns best with PMI mindset. I cannot overemphasize PMI mindset. I say it often. If you want to give someone gift and you want the person to appreciate the gift, you need to do due diligence. You need to find out what the person likes, what they don't like, what color, and all that. And that is what you are supposed to do as someone wanting to write the PMP exam. You need to understand PMI. So I say PMI, look at PMI as a person. PMI is an ethical being. And because you are PMI, so you are a project manager, you are a professional, you are ethical, you are a servant leader, you appreciate value that your customers want. You know how to resolve conflict, you know how to mentor, coach, and give access or mold your team members. You facilitate their growth. All right, you resolve conflict, you understand risk, that for every project you need to identify risk. You need to identify risk. Sorry, a call is coming in. You need to identify risk, analyze, and you have a risk culture, and you are also giving to a win-win situation. When it comes to negotiation, PMI encourages win-win situation. There's nothing like, oh, I played this fast. I played it fast. And you understand the code of ethics of PMI. So for every question you answer, you must situate it. Don't say, oh, this one, it doesn't matter. In my organization, we do it and it works. Please, your organization is not the owner of the exam and they are not the one marking. Someone wrote exam recently and was asking me if I could help him get his script. I laughed because I felt that way in 2011 when I wrote my first PMP and I failed. I was like, no, 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 because the answers I chose, they seemed right to me. Maybe there's someone that didn't like me and has scored me. What didn't I think? I was really looking for it. But then I think I asked someone and the person told me that, oh, they will never give you your script, oh, you know. And I believed that something went wrong, that I did so well, but something went wrong. And then until I got a simulator and I started practicing, and I realized that what I thought were answers were actually not answers. When I look at the justification, I was still like guessing until not too long ago. I now come to realize that you need a PMI's mindset, especially for us in Africa, that when I was in school, we say that the person who passes exam is the one who has studied. So, and it will pass locally. So if you study and you didn't pass, it means you did not study. You understand? So if you fail question, don't fight it. Don't fight that, but this one too can be right. So what you are doing at that point is you are refusing to unlearn where you are. And it's important for you to unlearn, to learn the PMI's way. So you need to understand the PMI's mindset. Okay. So in choosing the answer, you look at what out of the options fits the personality, as it were, of PMI. Your judgment ability is what is being tested. That now there are two options. How are you able to select the one that is right? And that is based on judgment, because you cannot say A or B. You choose one. Okay. So tip two, what should I do first and next answer? Some questions you will see, what should the project manager do first? Or what should the project manager do next? My response to you, my suggestion to you is that It is testing sequence and discipline. And for every PMP question, there's a structure, whether it's adaptive, agile, or hybrid or predictive. There's a structure that, okay, if it is predictive, you have to plan extensively. If you want to change anything, it has to go through integrated change control board. For the it will go through the integrated change control process for the change control board to approve or disapprove it. And for every change, you have to log it into the change log, and there should be a risk register, and there should be issue log and change log, and then you must have stakeholder register. You should have identified. So you know that structure. If it is adaptive, it's saying that, okay, there must be a customer that has a product owner, and then the customer and the product owner come together to populate the product backlog, and then prioritize the product backlog based on what the customer considers as important to her or him. Let me use her because I'm a she. Prioritizes, and then when it's prioritized, that prioritized product backlog is now given to the team, and then they select what they can work on within their iteration based on their velocity that is dependent on the number of story points they can complete in an iteration. That's a structure. So your answer must align to the structure, whether it's predictive, adaptive, or hybrid. You must understand that. So when you have question that is talking about what must the project manager do first, what must the project manager do next, it means there are sequences that you must consider, and it's a discipline. So understand the situation. I have said that almost all the questions is resolving something. It's either it's about conflict resolution, it's either it's about risk situation or issue situation, or a stakeholder having issue with requirements or value creation. It has to do with something like a form of conflict that you need to resolve, or your team member is not delivering well, is underperforming. So what do? You don't read question that says Jumoke is one of your team members, and you have noticed that for the past 2 weeks is underperforming, and then the next thing you do is or assign the responsibility to someone else, or ask HR to talk to Jumoke or remove Jumoke. You are solving the problem without even finding the root cause. So that is why for almost all the situations pertaining to each question, you must analyze, you must review, you must assess. Why are you doing that? For you to understand the root cause, because you want to solve the problem. You don't just want to take care of the surface or the symptoms. You want to solve the problem so that it does not repeat itself. All right. And then you take action. After you understand the root cause, then you can now take action. All right. You may be choosing the wrong answer if you acted before understanding. If just for that, that must be without you assessing, you may choose the wrong answer. That is why it's important to analyze, review, assess. Forgive my spelling error here. Then tip 3, when do I escalate? If you've been following me, you know I speak so much about escalation. Escalation is not bad on its own. It must be because of certain situation before you can escalate. Don't see question and the first thing you do is to escalate. So the only time or the times that you can escalate is one, if it is beyond your authority. It should state clearly in the question that is beyond your authority or your threshold. Then you don't even need to analyze anything, just escalate, because it has stated clearly that it is beyond your authority. Or it cannot be resolved within the team, which is more than, it's almost like the first one. It is more than what you and your team can handle. Or when you started the project, governance stated specifically that when you come across this kind of situation, it must be escalated to the program manager or the portfolio manager. You adhere to it. You don't say, let me show them that I can do it. I will attempt it. Before I tell anybody. That will be you working against the governance structure of the project. Now, before you escalate, if it did not say, if it did not say especially that is beyond your authority, you need to assess the issue, because you cannot just say the pump broke. Oh, the pump broke and this is the impact, and to replace it, but we need this amount of money to take. It will cost us this number of hours or number of days to replace it and all that. This is kind of information that you need to present. And for you to be able to get that information, you must assess the issue and then engage stakeholders, have conversation. If something is going wrong, the worst you can do is to try to hide it as if everything is okay when things are going wrong. And being truthful is part of what is expected of you as a project manager. But it's not enough to say, we encountered this problem. In fact, we don't even know what to do. We are just confused. I know you are confused. We too, we are confused. I mean, that's not what they are paying you for. So you can say, oh, we are, let me use myself as example. Um, when for those in Ghana, there was a period when a major was lynched in one of the regions. I was collecting data then, and I had a sample to collect. We were hearing that there was like riots and people were fighting. So what did we do? And usually they will tell you that enumerators or interviewers must not conduct more than this interview per day. I wrote to the client, we can't spend 3 days in that community. We are spending only one night. And that one night, we are spending it in the chief's house, palace kind of to protect the interviewers. So we went against earlier agreement, giving them the situation, the scenario, because of their safety and all that, and me assuring them that the narrators are poised and capable of doing uh, more interviews than what we earlier agreed on, and that gave them comfort. Can you imagine if I had called, and this was 2017? Can you imagine if I had called and said, no, we can't do, and I don't even know what we are going to do, and they are in the States? How are they going to handle that? So your responsibility as the project manager is not enough. In fact, as all of us, whether you are managing projects personally, whatever, you cannot just, because the easiest thing for anybody is to identify problem. That almost everybody can identify that there's a problem, but not everybody can resolve it. But as a project manager, you should be able to resolve problem, or at least have idea how the problem can be resolved. Another point where you can escalate is after you've attempted to address the issue but you failed, and it's going to have impact on the project. You cannot keep repeating, you are out of your bandwidth, then you can escalate. So don't rush to escalate. You need to first investigate to understand the situation of things before you escalate. Tip 4: how do I handle conflicting stakeholders? Some people feel, say, me, I know my scope. I don't have to worry myself. You have to worry yourself. Don't avoid. Don't also impose that, hey, look, I'm the project manager here. If you knew you, they would have made you the project manager. And as long as I'm the project manager, you have to listen to me. That is not the posture you want to take with your stakeholders. You don't avoid them as well. So you engage both stakeholders. Let's say two stakeholders are having issues, engage them. If it is very volatile, you may want to engage them separately. Understand their interests. Sometimes understanding people's perception helps in communication. Then you facilitate alignment. You have an underlying scope that is in the project charter, and you cannot just go out of it. So you align it. If, let's say, it's a key stakeholder and it has to change, then you go through the change control board. It's as simple as that. So collaboration is key, not authority. When you have authority, when you have power, and you are leading people without um, exerting that power, that's what makes you a leader. Then tip 5: what if there's a change request late in the project? Let's say you are managing the project and you are saying, oh, next week we are finishing the project. Then boom, it's a change request. What do? You say, no, do you know how long we have come? No, 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 no. We cannot change. We cannot accept this change. No, 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 no. Another, is that what you will do? No. Timing does not remove discipline. Evaluate the change. If it is predictive, evaluate the change, pass it, then go through the integrated change control process so that the change control board can make decision. You are not the one paying. And I keep saying the project is not for you. It's not about you. You are implementing the project on behalf of stakeholders or sponsor. So assess the impact. Then you can pass it to the change control board, and they will make decision. Whatever decision they make, if they accepted the change, you input it in the change log. If they do not accept the change, You still input it there. All right. And what you are assessing is the impact on scope, on cost, on schedule, on risk, on quality. Okay. And then follow the change control process. Don't make the decision. Sometimes the question will be posed like, you have to make decision right now. If you don't make decision, don't fall for it. Oh. Don't fall for it. In Agile, how change is managed in Agile is through the product backlog. It is through you prioritizing the product backlog. The customer says, I want this, especially after a review, ceremony. I want this, I want that. Okay, I first said that the one at 14 is what I want. Now let's move the user story or the value from 14 to 3. After the product owner has listened to the customer and has moved based on the customer's preference, that prioritized product backlog is what will be presented to the team to pick what they can work on. So always look for reprioritization, reprioritization, reprioritization. Reprioritization suggests that at the end of an iteration or a sprint, the customer has made additional requests. It has been added to the product backlog, and the product owner with the customer have reprioritized, move this one here, move that one there on the product backlog. So now they have a reprioritized product backlog. They now give that reprioritized product backlog to the team to pick what they can work on. It's important to pay attention to how changes be managed. And you must understand the context before you start answering question. Don't just jump and start answering question, because your what is it called? Your default setting may be predictive. So you may see a question, just assume it's a predictive question. Meanwhile, it's not predictive, it's adaptive or agile. So your option will be definitely wrong for such question. So no matter how urgent it feels, structure must guide action. Like I said earlier, sometimes like the question is very urgent. Hey, this you have to do it. If you don't do it, this will happen. Nah, lie. Follow structure. Tip 6. What is the difference between risk and issue? Sometimes people confuse it. Um, was it last week or last 2 weeks? I was in a session and someone said, if you have an issue, if you have a risk that is very certain, that's like 100% certainty that it will occur, is it issue or risk? I say it's risk because it has not happened. So if it has 100% probability or likelihood of occurring, that is the probability. It has not happened yet. So at that point, it's a risk, because risk is referring to something that may happen in the future. When we say future, it could be tomorrow, it could be next week, it could be next year. So the future doesn't mean it's 10 years. It has, as at the time you identify it, it has not happened. It's risk. And risk is defined as a futuristic event or occurrence that when it happens may have positive or negative impact. Issue is talking about now, it has happened, and then the impact of issue is always negative. If you have a risk, it means you have identified it and you have positioned it or placed it in the risk register. If the risk you identified, let's say you are working on a project and you say flooding is a potential risk, and that the trigger is if it rains continuously for 4 hours, flooding may occur. So if it starts raining, the owner of the risk, you would have assigned that risk to a team member. The owner of the risk is observing 1 hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. Then the trigger is met. You would start implementing the response that you put in place. So it is no now longer a risk, it's now an issue. So you respond to it based on the response that you have put in place. So we are going to call Ghana Fire Service. We are going to call, whatever you have put in place. You now implement that. So what you are addressing now is no longer risk. It is now issue because it has happened. Now, this will be referred to as known unknown, risk that you identify, analyzed. But then there are some risks that you may not be able to identify them. We call them unknown. Now, for the risk that you identified that has occurred, that has become issue, how you respond to them is through the contingency reserve. which is part of your budget. Now, for the risks that you are unable to identify and it has become an issue, they are called unknown, double unknowns. How do you respond to such? Because you didn't know, you didn't plan for them or for it. You go to management to assess um, management reserve. So management reserve is not part of the budget that you, the project manager, have control over. It is with the management, and it addresses risks that you did not identify. They are known unknown, so pay attention to that. So risk might happen. It's in the future. Issue, something that has happened. Your action, risk goes into the risk register, issue goes into the issue log. Don't confuse them. So if a scenario is being painted in the question, if I were you, what I'll be looking at for is, has it happened? Are they talking about something that has happened? Or they're talking about something that may happen? If it may happen, it's a risk. If it has happened, it's an issue. Tip 7, identifying agile and predictive questions. Like I said, some questions, they will even tell you in a predictive project, in an adaptive or agile project, that you don't need to be identifying whether it's predictive or adaptive because they've already fed you. Now, if the question didn't start by saying in an agile project or in a predictive project, you have to decipher what the development or methodology is. So you look at the question, if you see backlog, you see sprint or iteration, you see product owner, you see daily stand up, you see review meeting, because it is agile. If you are reading question, you are seeing change request. There's no change request in agile. It is predictive. You are seeing baselines. There's no baselines in adaptive or agile. It's predictive. Detailed planning. In fact, that is almost like the constant giveaway. Detailed planning, because you plan in agile, but you don't do detailed planning in agile. It is only in predictive that you do detailed planning. Then, if you are reading and you're having a mix, backlog, change request, then it's hybrid. But if you are reading and you are seeing change requests, baselines, detail planning, then it's predictive. The approach determines the answer. Because, for instance, the function of the Scrum Master is different from how a Scrum Master in Agile is different from how a project manager performs or operates in predictive. So if the question is Agile and you are thinking predictive or waterfall or traditional method in your head, the answer you are going to choose will be wrong. And PMI will almost always put options for both methodology in the four options. You will see them there. All right. So approach determines the answer. Tip 8. What is the project manager's role in Agile? You don't command the Scrum Master, you enable. You support the team, you remove impediments, you facilitate collaboration, you protect the team from disruptions, that's it. Unlike predictive, that you sit, you chair meetings, you determine the roles, you lead the determination of the roles and responsibilities and all that. So leadership shifts from control to service. In Agile, is serving. That is why the servant leadership was more grounded or rooted in Agile than predictive. So now I have given these preambles before I now answer the questions that some of you sent to me. So, question 1. If I schedule my exam today is 30th March 2026, to write in August because my validity ends in December, will I be writing on the current exam content outline or the new one starting in July? I can understand why this person is asking this question, because my validity ends in December. The exam is changing in July. If I schedule my exam today before the exam changes, which of the exam content outline will I be writing my exam on? Please, it will be the new one. I remember in 2021 when the exam changed 2nd January, beginning of the year 2021, and people were just feeling, because at that point the way information is out, like now, the training I will be having in April It will be based on the new content, so that it gives people enough room to plan, to prepare and write the exam in July. Even me, as the president of PMI Ghana, I was still thinking the exam was based on PMBOK. I didn't know that the exam had moved from just being based solely on PMBOK to about 11 books. So if you registered or scheduled your exam today and it is beyond July, you'll be writing the exam on the new content outline. And I can assure you, you are not prepared for it. You know, as I was looking at the new exam, this current exam has 6 lessons. 6 lessons. The new exam will be based on 12 lessons. That is why you have to do all that you can to write and pass now. If you do not write now, to increase your chances of passing the exam, you would have to redo your 35-hour training. I hope I answered that question. This should be 2. Okay, it's repeated. Question 2. How do I know what the best answer is when multiple options look correct? I think I did that earlier. I answered that in my presentation, that knowing or having PMI mindset and your ability to be able to sequence things is what tells you which of the answer is right at that point. All right. The PMI is fair, PMI is goes for win-win situation, PMI is ethical, you are a professional servant leader, you solve problem and all that. Question 3. What mindset should I use when answering PMP questions? You have to use PMI's mindset, not your mindset. I mean, till that, I get people tell me, Jimmy, but this one too is right. I don't understand why that should be, why this should be wrong. Hey, Jesus. See, somebody read the question and said that you have completed the project, but the stakeholder is still making changes. And I said, if you have completed the project and the stakeholder is making changes, it simply means you have not closed the project. Because you can finish the task, but you have not closed the project. If you have not closed the project, you've not done the administrative task, as in paying off the vendors, returning the tools and equipment back, sending team members back to their functional departments, and closing the contract and everything. And then at the closing, that is where you have validated scope. Validated scope simply means that when you presented what you delivered, the customer was like, oh yeah, that's what we asked you to do. So the customer has validated your work. And that happens during closing. So if you and your team, you tell yourself, we have completed work, but you have not closed, it means the customer has not validated what you worked on. Of course, the customer can still make requests. And that's what happens in your organization. You work on projects and you've not closed the project. 6 months later, your boss comes to stand beside your table and say, the project, did you even do this? And you say, no. You say, how can you? You didn't do this. And then anyone listening would think, Jumoke, you work on this project, you didn't do this. But it could be an afterthought. But because the project was not properly closed, it was still open. As a consultant, I had this challenge until I started closing my project, I think in 2012 or 2013. Previously, I work and I leave it. Once I received my pay, my final payment, I thought I had closed. 6 months later, my clients will come and say, when you went to Bronga Hafo, did you ask the farmers this? I'll say, no. So no, we need the information. Now I have to take from the profit I've already made and go back to Bronga Hafo. So when I thought of it, I itemize all the requirements, and as I deliver, I make the client sign against it. I finish, we close it, take my final payment. When they come to ask any question, it becomes a new project. You understand? So you must have the mindset of PMI in answering PMP question. It's not about how you manage projects in your organization. It's not about how you feel. It's not about what somebody told you. It is about PMI. Okay. And then question 4, when should I escalate and when should I resolve issues myself? I think we answered this earlier. When it's above your threshold, when you have attempted it multiple times and you are not getting it. Question 5, how do I quickly identify if a question is agile, hybrid, or predictive? I've addressed also this. If it is agile, you'll be seeing iteration, stand-up meeting, product backlog, product owner. If it is predictive, you will be seeing change control, process or board. You will be seeing extensive planning. If it is hybrid, it will be combination. What is the project manager's role in agile and predictive projects? The role of the project manager in agile is a facilitator, an enabler. An enabler is more appropriate for project manager. And then the team, the project manager in agile, who is a scrum master, creates an enabling environment, agile enabling environment that allows the team members to self-organize, and then it removes impediments. The predictive provides leadership. We are doing this, and then it leads people. Question 7, how do I handle conflicting stakeholders in exam scenarios? I have explained this earlier. If it is not volatile, you meet the two of them or the three of them, as it were. If it is volatile, you meet each of them, and then you bring sanity, calmness. You don't avoid them. Question 8, what should I do when there is a change request late on the project? You accept change request. What is it called? You analyze the impact and present it to the change control board to make decision. Question 9, when you identify a risk, do you analyze before recording in the risk register or vice versa? Applies to issue 2. When you start identifying risk, what do? When you identify risk, you input them in the risk register, and then you now analyze each of the risk. Remember, the first analysis is qualitative, the one with L, qualitative, which is a subjective analysis, which tells you the impact and probability of each of the risk occurring. And then that enables you to now prioritize, to categorize the risk. So of course, as you identify, you list, you put them into the risk register as you analyze. So like maybe the first page is when you imputed, and then when you analyze and you categorize, it could be on the next page. Okay. And I have also distinguished between risk and issue. The risk applies to an event or occurrence that may happen in the future. It has not happened. So when you are reading, sometimes we describe how it will turn out should it occur, by just be looking into the question and establish it has not happened. If it has not happened, then it's a risk. If it has happened, then it's an issue. Question 10. When a stakeholder raises concern with respect to a plan, do you review the plan first, or you call the stakeholder to address his concern? You see, I think it's choice of word. When you meet with a stakeholder to address this concern, it doesn't mean you are telling the stakeholder that, see, that your issue doesn't hold, or there's something like that. That's not what you are doing. But you need to understand what the stakeholders' concerns are, and then help the stakeholder to align it. Let's say you are to build a 3-bedroom flat in a rural area, and then a stakeholder comes and say, when I went somewhere, I saw telepad, so I want these 3 bedrooms to have telepad. But you have the project charter. So after you have conversations, oh, it would be great if the structure can have telepad, but the project does not make provision, the budget, the scope does not make provision for telepad. You engage the stakeholder. You don't just say, I will not do it because it's not in the scope. Whether you like it or not, I'm the project manager. That's not what you will do. You will engage the stakeholder. Okay? Remember, now, whatever you are doing, you are factoring in the value based on the perception of the stakeholder. So the stakeholders' perception must come on board. You must factor that. No matter what you deliver, if the stakeholder feels there's no value, the project has failed. This is not what I want. So you must engage to be able to manage the stakeholders' expectations. Okay. Question 11. How do I manage difficult or resistant stakeholders? You engage them. You don't throw them away. Sometimes the question will make it look like you should avoid the stakeholder, because if the person is a stakeholder, you don't avoid the stakeholder. You cannot avoid stakeholder. You just have to. That is why you are managing. You are leading people. You are not managing people. You are leading people, and you have to um, change your leadership style to suit the people you are managing. If you are managing a difficult stakeholder, it means you are not going to be talking plenty. You have to listen to what the stakeholder is saying so that you know how to handle. You understand? Because your stakeholders include your team members, vendors, users, suppliers, government, community. You understand? So you manage by listening, by trying to bring them on the same boat. Sometimes some stakeholders you may not be able to handle them. You will escalate them to um, leadership. Question 12. What is the difference between a risk and an issue in exam context? I think I've already explained this in the earlier slides. 13. When do I use the risk register or issue log? Use risk register to capture risk. Use issue log to capture issues when they occur. 14. What is the correct sequence of handling change request? A change request is made, then the change request is analyzed for the impact on cost, on time, on schedule, on quality, and that is presented to the change control board. And the change control board make decision. So when the change request is made and you analyze, you input it in the change log. The change log has column. So whatever the decision is, if it is accepted, you will say it's accepted. If it's accepted, then the impact it would have on cost, on time, on risk, on quality means you have to go and update those subsidiary project management plan. Okay, so they will give you more money if you will need more money. They will allow more time if you need more time, and all that. If you have to procure something outside the organization to be able to meet that change, if the change request is rejected, you will still input it in the change log and give the reason why it's rejected, because that serves as part of the lessons learned or part of the knowledge repository for future projects. All right, so that if someone else is managing a similar project in the future, they will know that at this point a change request was made, it was rejected because of ABCD. Question 15. Should I always follow the change control process if it is predictive? Yes. 16. How do I quickly interpret CPI and SPI in questions? Now, this is earned value management. So you need to know your schedule variance, you need to know your cost variance and the formula. You need to know your cost performance index. What does it do? Cost performance index is telling you that on this project, for every one CD, so let me use the currency in Ghana, for every one CD that I spend on this project, if you got, let's say, 0.75, it means for every one CD you spend, the value of work you are getting is 75 pesos. It means you are losing 25 pesos for every one CD you spend. So if you don't change at the point you are, it means that you will spend more, or you are already spending more at this point. Because if you are supposed to get something for one CD, but you spend one CD and the value you get is 75 pesos, you still need that amount of one CD. So it means you have to look for money to top it up for you to be able to make up for that 25 pesos. So end value through CPI and SPI, schedule performance index, would help you to be able to tell how you are doing in terms of cost and in terms of schedule. If it is schedule performance index that is 0.90, it means your time format, let's say it's 1 day, 1 year, 1 month, it means instead of maybe 1 hour, what you're supposed to have covered in 1 hour, you are covering less than an hour. So the amount of work that you are supposed to finish in 1 hour, you've covered less. You have spent that 1 hour, but you've covered less. So it means there will be schedule overrun. You're going to spend more time. All right. So if it is 0 point something, it means you are not efficient. Your time is not efficient. Your budget is not efficient. If it is 1, it means just efficient. You are spending as much as you say you will spend and you are getting the value. You are spending the time and you are getting the value within the time. So you are going to deliver the project on time and on budget. If it is 1 point something, 1 point something, it means that for every one CD, you are getting 1 point, say 20 pesos. You are getting more value than that one. So it means that you are likely going to finish the project earlier than you plan. You're likely going to finish the project earlier than you plan. You get it. I don't know why people are calling me today. All right, so that is what it means. In PMP questions, what I have realized now is that you may not be asked to calculate, but you may be given figures to interpret. So you need to understand this. Question 17. How do I know that I am ready to write the exam? This is one of the difficult questions. Because some people, they will be scoring 50% in the simulator and they will go and write and pass. Because simulator has human errors too. Maybe when they were inputting, they made mistake and say C is answer instead of B. How you will know that you are ready to write the answer? Even for simulator, you will use the score, like mm, first set of questions you are coming across for the first time. Your performance is what you will use. You cannot use performance after you have attempted the questions 2 or 3 times. That is one. Two, your ability to be able to implement your understanding of basics like um, understanding agile, understanding prioritization of product backlog, understanding what um, burn up charts, burn down charts, understanding change control, the process, understanding the difference between agile. Like if you saw a question for you to be able to say this is agile, but most importantly, having the PMI mindset, the PMI mindset. Like you have dissociated, you can tell that if in my organization they would do it this way, but this is not right according to PMI. The moment you are able to decipher that, then you are ready. Now, I will also tell you that with the 8 certifications that I have with PMI, I have never felt I am ready for any of the exam. I get into the exam and I feel guilty, and that's where I learned taking the deep breath through my nostril and then exhale through my mouth to calm myself down. But the confidence I usually have is I make sure I understand the basics. I go through the exam content outline to understand what PMI expects me to know about the exam. So it's actually dependent on you. But what I tell people too is don't panic. Don't panic. The people passing the exam, they have one head like you. In fact, you are even smarter than some of them. So you need to be composed. And when you start agitating, you start making mistakes that you shouldn't make. You start overthinking, second guessing yourself. So it makes you underperform because you are placing too much pressure on yourself. All right. So, and the truth is, I see people wanting to write this exam and they are not putting in enough effort. This is a gold standard certification globally, for goodness sakes. You don't expect that you will go 3 4 days and one day just say, yeah, I'm writing PMP. Yeah, what is it? What is it? Like you just throw in 30 minutes or 1 hour and you are expecting not to be confused because the volume of information that is being thrown at you for PMP is a lot, especially if you are working. You have gone off studying for some time, now you are coming. You have to immerse yourself constantly. That's to become part of your thoughts. You know, that even you want to call someone, you say product backlog. Sorry, Ikea. You know, that shows how much you are immersed. And it has to be a daily thing, a daily constant thing. Sometimes I don't have time. I say reduce the number of hours you are sleeping for this period, just 1 month. The time you use on watching football, divert it to studying. The time you use for telenovela, divert it. The time you're using to argue the richest footballer I know, divert it into studying for that period. You spend 1 hour on lunch, cut it down to 45 minutes. Spend 15 minutes on the PMP. You go to washroom to do major. Don't just go and sit down and do like this. Don't go and sit down and do that. Go there with a book, with a note, with your phone, notepad, something. Like every time you're doing something, have notes. I have flashcards. Oh, where's my flashcard? That I tell ladies, I think it's on my bed. Even I'm certified, but I still use the flashcards. You know, like just flip through, flip through. Constantly. It would help. And then you can tell. And the more you do that, you yourself can tell your confidence is increasing. And you see, you know, I've put in work, and you also know I've not put in work. But if let's say the foundation is not well laid, because I have heard some of you say I was taught, but I didn't understand what I learned, and in all that, and I cannot blame the instructors fully. Some of you are partially in the class. So maybe you missed out on some of the things the instructor said, but you will know when you have put in some effort, ready to write the exam. What should I do in the last week before the exam? That's not when to stress yourself. It's like when you go to uni, you see some people, they start preparing from day one. They go to class, they make notes. After lectures, they themselves go to study. So when the exam comes, it looks like they are not studying because they've put in the work consistently. And then the week of exam, they are still combing their hair, they are making up, and you are wondering, hey, are we writing this exam? You still have time to do this because they have put in the work. So put in the work before the last week. Because you have not put in the work now, you have sleepless night, you are developing temperature, you are doing this. I have heard people got to the exam hall and they had blackouts because they were overly stressed. The day before the exam, sleep well. But you can only sleep well if you have put in the work. So put in the work. Now, how do I manage time across 180 questions? Writing the exam, they will take your phone, they will take your watch, but the screen has analog time at the top right corner and it's counting down. It starts from 2:30 and it's be counting down. So what I tell people is divide that 2:30 by 3 because the exam is broken into 60, 60, 60. So divide the 2:30 by 3 and it will give you 76.66 minutes. I have checked it. Average time that you need for every question is 1.2 minutes. So you will deduct the 76, let's say 77 from the 2:30, you'll be left with 153 or so. So you write that 153 minutes down. So when you are looking and it's counting down to 2:30, 2:20, 2:10, 200, 180, 170, when it gets to 150, you know that you should have finished 60 questions. Whether the system asks you or not, you know you should have finished 60 questions because when you do 60 questions, the system would ask you to submit it. So if you have questions you have marked, that is when you mark them and then you submit. Because once you submit the first 60, you will no longer have access to them again. And then the system will ask you if you want to take your 10 minutes break. If you are like those people that get up and go and take the 10 minutes because it will not be taken from your time. Then you come back, you do the next 60, it does the same thing for you to submit and take your 10 minutes break. Now, if you deducted 70 something from the 157, you will have 70 something left. So this is how you'll be able to mark yourself, your pace. For me, I mark every heavy worded questions. I mark and I skip so that I go to the questions that are maybe 3 lines, 2 lines. I save time. I said it's like 1.2 minutes. So maybe I'll spend 30 seconds, 47, 45 seconds on those small worded questions. Then I will have enough time to come back to the worded question because all PMI's exam, that's what they do. If it is what the CP that I wrote, they were 120 questions. They broke them down to 40, for you to take break and come back. I think it has to do with the feedback some of us give them. I didn't give that feedback, while some people gave it. So you can do that to manage time across your 180 questions. What do I do if I don't understand the question? I say this often. I say this often that sometimes some of the questions, if they gave you 7 days without you having access to internet or book, you don't know it. So what do? Use the PMI personality that you know, the win-win, the ethical, the professional, servant leadership, to determine which of the option is correct. Okay. And then, oh, sorry, I was supposed to do something and I didn't. Sorry. Question 21. How do I avoid overthinking questions? Okay, so one thing that I have discovered about myself is my first option is always right. The moment I change it, I usually change it to the wrong one. But I have also had occasion where I changed the option and it was right. So follow your instinct. Study well enough to follow your instinct. Okay. Question 22. This is the last question. What are common mistakes candidates make in the exam? Not reading question from beginning to end. People just jump. They read the first sentence and then they assume as if they wrote the question with the examiner. Don't read to end. That's one. The second mistake they make, they read the first. There are four options. There are usually four options. They read the first two options and they pick maybe A or B. They leave the C and D. Even if you feel A is the answer, indulge yourself to read this B, C, D to confirm that the answer you have chosen is the right one before you eventually make it. All right. And if you got into the exam hall and you are panicking, relax. Relax. If you don't know a question, don't say I don't know it, then you skip. PMI doesn't mark you for wrong option. They don't mark. So don't leave any question unanswered. Okay. So with that, I come to the end of today's session. Please follow me on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. I am there as Jumoke Lafenwa, and follow Okin Valley. You are on YouTube. You are Okin Valley's YouTube handle. Follow Okin Valley on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on Instagram, on YouTube, and TikTok. And this is my book. It's on Amazon. It's on Seller. If you're in Ghana, you can get in touch with me and get a copy. It's only 350 cedis. If you are buying hard copy, it's 350. If you are buying soft copy, it's also 350 cedis. So I am done with my presentation, but I see a question here. Where do I difficult exam to come back answer? Oh, you will see it. How do you mark? You will see the, I don't know how to describe it, but you will see mark. So when you mark, you'll be able to. So that's it. I'm done with today's presentation. Do you have any question for me before we call it a day? We've spent an hour already. Yes. Once you are at it, please follow the. I have 23 of you online now. Please follow Okin Valley Limited on YouTube and just click on like and pass your comments. Um what's your view about what I have presented today? Is it worth your time? Share also, invite people uh, to join. All right. So I think there are no um, questions. I would like to say thank you very much for joining today's session and see you same time next week. Bye bye. I'm ending because no question. Thank you. Bye.